guys, it's Vicky, and today I'm here to share with you my December wrap-up, all the books that I read in the month of December. I ended up reading 5 books, so let's just get right into it. The first book that I completed in December was The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and this was one that had been on my TBR for a really long time, and I'm really glad that I finally read it. It's basically about these 6 people that are going to a college, and they are part of like this elite group where they just study Greek classics and the Greek language. And basically right in the beginning of the book you find out that one of them is killed, and that person is killed by the other 5 people. Like, they're all in on it. So this book is very much a why book, because you know right at the beginning the what and the who. So it's very much about why they did what they did. And for the most part, I really liked this book. I thought the writing was great. The characters were very well developed, though they were pretty unlikable. Even the narrator, all of them were just not very likable people. I'm pretty sure that was done deliberately. They just came across as very pretentious. So not very likable characters, but still a very interesting character study. Though the writing was really good and the plot was good, it was kind of a slow read for me. It took me a really long time to read this. I'm not really sure why, because like I said, the writing was good, the plot was good, just slow read. The climax that happens in the book, that happens, and then there's still like 200 pages left. So I was like, what can possibly happen now? But there were still 200 pages to go, so that was a little bit kind of bogged down there, those last 200 pages. But it was important to the story, so I saw why Donna Tartt did that. This book definitely explores kind of the essence of evil and why people do evil things and how in their own mind they rationalize the things that they do. In this book, it's no surprise that it kind of plays out like a Greek tragedy because they're studying, Greek classics and stuff. So it kind of makes sense. The other thing, speaking of the Greek stuff, there's a lot of talk of that stuff in this book, and a lot of it, let's be honest, most of it went right over my head because I'm not familiar with that stuff. So some of that stuff was kind of meh because I didn't really know what they were talking about. And the other thing, the other only kind of complaint I guess I have is they talk about, like, in the synopsis, this like charismatic professor that they have, and he's not really there very much. He's kind of in the background. I was expecting him to be more of a central character, and he was kind of on the sidelines most of the time. So all in all, The Secret History, very good read. I enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I completed in December was Missoula, Rape. I have to look up in the subtitle. I can never remember subtitles. Does anybody else have this problem? Okay, it's called Missoula, Rape in the Justice System in a College Town by Jon Krakauer. And I picked this up initially because I really enjoyed Jon Krakauer's book Into the Wild. So when I saw this one through Overdrive through my library, I decided to listen to it on audio. And this book basically examines the high presence of rape and sexual assault on the campus of the University of Montana in Missoula, Montana. And so he talks very in depth about specific cases. So right off the bat, if kind of graphic depictions of rape bother you or are a trigger, you might want to know that going into this book, because he does describe them, and some of them are just really horrible, what happened to these women. And so the book examines why it is, or attempts to explain and answer why it is that so many sexual assaults are happening on this campus. Most of the people involved, in the stories that he talks about anyway, the guys are on the football team, and Missoula is a very football-oriented town, so it kind of asks the question like, okay, are these guys being protected because of who they are? Are they getting special treatment and whatnot? So it's one of those books that just really, when you are like, well, listening to it, because I listen to it, but when you read it, it just really makes you mad because some of these stories are just horrible. And for a couple of them, you see the cases from like when the incident occurred all the way through the court system and everything. And some of the outcomes are just, yeah, completely unfair. And there's one case in particular, I don't want to give too much away, but there's one case in particular where this woman comes forward. She was raped by someone that she knew very well. He ends up admitting that he raped her, and yet still she is just like ostracized by her community and by the college. Like it was her fault, and it's like, hello, he admitted to raping her. Like that's just so upsetting to me. Like how could you possibly side with a rapist? But there were people that did, and it's just mind-boggling to me. The book obviously also examines why rape cases are so difficult to prosecute and everything because of the nature of the crime. It's definitely like a he said, she said thing. And he, like I said, is trying to examine why does this town in particular has this problem. And I think he does a really good job of trying to answer those questions. And he brings up a lot of interesting points, such as there were a couple cases where the guys, clearly they had sexually assaulted someone and they didn't think that what they were doing was rape or sexual assault, which really begs the question, what are we doing as a society to teach men and women when they're learning about sex? They also have to learn about consent and what that means, because I think that tends to be the issue today. Like I think most teenagers are getting their like sex education by watching porn on the internet, and obviously porn is not like real. I mean, it's real sex, but it's not like the reality. And so I think a lot of people go into a sexual relationship or sexual act thinking that that is what sex is supposed to be, and it's not. So it just really, for me, as I was reading it, it really got me thinking about how can we educate people about consent, because it seems like such a simple thing, but obviously people are missing something. So it made me think about, even though my kids are very, very young, and I have a boy and a girl, so I'm going to have kind of both sides as they get older, how am I going to teach them about this topic? Because I think it's like when you take sex ed, it's just about like the technicalities of sex, and not necessarily about these gray areas and how to handle these situations. And I think it's something that needs to be talked about and needs to be taught to people. So all in all, I thought that Missoula was a very good book. I would recommend it. Like I said though, if rape is a trigger for you, you might not like this book, but I thought it was very informative and very emotionally charged, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. My next December read was The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon, and this was one that my husband wrapped. I had 3 books wrapped at the beginning of the month, and this was the first one that I opened. And I'm so glad that he picked this one because it was just the perfect time to read this book. Obviously, winter, it's the perfect time of year to read this book. It takes place in January, so yeah, great. I really liked this book. It's about, there's kind of 2 storylines going on. There's a storyline going on in 1908 and then a storyline going on in the present time. And you kind of, as the book progresses, see how they have, what they have to do with each other, which I always like to see. And you had 3 or 4 different perspectives, if I remember right. And I always like that too. This book, surprisingly, was very creepy. I didn't think it was going to be as creepy as it was. There were definitely some scenes that, made my hair stand on end. It was just whoa. I don't want to say too much about the plot, but I will say that it definitely was giving me some Pet Sematary vibes, by Stephen King, Pet Sematary. I loved how this book blended, elements of horror with psychological thriller and then also just, literary fiction. I thought the writing was really good. The plot was great. I loved how everything kind of ended up working together and how it all kind of related. And yeah, I definitely recommend this one. I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished this month was The Great Shark Hunt by Hunter S. Thompson. I've been reading this book since July, and I finally finished it, and I just loved this book. I mean, I love Hunter S. Thompson. Like I said, he's one of my favorite writers, so I really enjoyed this. I would have given it 5 out of 5 stars, but I docked a star because the only thing I didn't like about this was the structure of the book. It's basically a bunch of his articles that he wrote kind of in the 60s and 70s, and I thought that it would have made more sense to me to have it like chronological, but it doesn't. It kind of jumps around a little bit. I would have just liked it better if it had been chronological, but definitely my favorite story in here was the title story, The Great Shark Hunt. Just classic Hunter S. Thompson. Very funny, just very good. There's also excerpts from his book Hell's Angels in here, and there's excerpts from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So you get a lot of his stuff, and it's just good stuff. So definitely, if you want to check out Hunter S. Thompson, this would be a good place to start. I know it's a little bit of a chunkier book. It's a little intimidating, but it's one of those that you can pick up and just read like an article here and there, because he is just he was a fantastic writer, and just a real visionary for our time. So yeah, loved this book, 4 out of 5 stars. I did DNF one book this month, which I haven't DNF'd a book in quite a while, but I ended up DNFing The Wilderness Within by John Claude Smith. This was the second book that my husband wrapped for me, that I opened, and I got about 60 or 70 pages in, and I just wasn't feeling it. The story just wasn't grabbing me. I didn't like the writing. There were things about the plot that were just too, like, I don't know, it was just too, like, convenient. I don't know, I just wasn't liking it, and I was like, you know what, I got other books to read. I'm not going to waste my time with this, so yeah, DNF'd this one. But I finished the month by reading You Are a Badass, How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living oh my god, I can't even read. Let's start over. You Are a Badass, How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life by Jen Sincero. And I listened to this on audio and kind of read it, so it was like one of those dual things. And this is a self-help book. That I don't typically read self-help, but my friend Becca, who I love dearly, got this for me when I had my son, and I just am now picking it up. But she read it, and she really enjoyed it, and so she wanted to pass it on. So it's basically just one of those books that kind of, it's a self-help book. Though parts of it were a little bit cheesy, a little corny, there were definitely some things in here that struck a nerve for me, some hard truths about myself that I was like, yeah, I can see that, and kind of made me self-examine a little bit, which is never a bad thing. And I really liked her humor. I thought that it was, she was funny, and she did have some good pointers and some interesting things to say, and it did kind of make me just think, which is good. But overall, at times I thought it was like a little bit too self-helpy, for lack of a better term, and so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I would recommend it if you are looking for a self-help book. This was a really popular one this year, so I would definitely check it out if it's something that you're looking for, because like I said, it does have some pretty good insights and some tips and all of that. So yeah, I enjoyed it, but 3 out of 5 stars. Alright guys, so those are all the books that I read in the month of December. I think that I finished out the year pretty strong. I read some good stuff, and I was really happy with how the month went. Despite having one book DNF'd, I mean, like I said, I haven't DNF'd a book in a really long time, so hey, it's a win. So please let me know down below what books you read in December. How did you finish out the year 2017? Because I would love to know. But other than that, that's all I have. So I hope that 2017 treated you well. I hope that you all had a wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year, and that 2018 treats you well too. So other than that, I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.